The morning sun had barely touched the cracked walls of Enugu's Independence layout when Mary, a heavily pregnant woman in torn slippers, bent beside a dustbin, searching for what the world threw away. Her belly pressed tight against her wrapper, her hands shaky, her eyes tired. She had not eaten since yesterday. Every sound of passing cars made her heart race. She didn't want anyone to see her like this, a woman once loved, now forgotten, feeding on garbage. Her hands dug through plastic bags, wet paper, and broken bottles. Then, something strange caught her eye, a black leather briefcase, half covered with dirt and old wrappers. It looked new, too clean for the trash. She looked around. The street was empty except for a stray dog sniffing a gutter. Slowly, she pulled the briefcase out. It was heavy, heavier than anything she had lifted in weeks. For a moment, she stood frozen, her eyes wide. "What's inside?" she whispered, pressing one hand on her chest as if to calm her heartbeat. Mary's fingers trembled as she opened it. And then, she gasped. Inside lay bars of gold, glowing faintly in the morning light, wrapped neatly in cloth. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. For a long second, she couldn't breathe. Was this real? She shut it quickly, looking around again, expecting someone to shout "thief" or run toward her. Nothing. Just the distant sound of a generator and a rooster's cry. Her heart pounded harder. "Is this my miracle?" she muttered. "After all the pain, maybe God finally remembered me." She covered the briefcase with an old bag and began walking fast, her eyes darting left and right. But before she could turn the corner, she saw an old woman sitting by the roadside, crying uncontrollably. Her voice cracked like someone whose soul had broken. Mary slowed her steps, her grip on the briefcase tightening. The woman's gray hair scattered in the wind. Her wrapper was soaked with tears. "Please," the old woman cried out, her voice trembling. "Has anyone seen my briefcase? My husband's promise to me is gone." Mary froze. The words pierced her chest. Her mouth went dry. The woman looked up and their eyes met. She squinted, noticing something familiar about the shape of the bag in Mary's hands. "My daughter," she said softly, standing weakly. "That thing you carry, it looks like mine. Please, let me see it." Mary stepped back. "No, Mima. I haven't seen anything." The woman moved closer, desperation filling her eyes. "Please, my husband buried that gold for our children's future. He died protecting it. I begged God to let me see it one last time before I die. Please." "I said I don't know what you're talking about." Mary snapped suddenly, her voice shaking. She turned and walked away quickly, clutching the bag like her life depended on it. Behind her, the old woman fell to her knees, sobbing into the dust. Mary didn't look back. She couldn't. Her mind raced faster than her feet. She reached the narrow road that led to the public park and stopped to catch her breath. Sweat rolled down her face. She sat on a bench and placed her hand over her belly. The baby kicked. "I did this for you," she whispered to her unborn child. "We can't live like this forever. God won't mind if I take it. Maybe it's His way of blessing us." But deep down, something felt wrong. As she sat there, a memory crept in, her husband's face the day he left. He had said, "Mary, life will test you, but don't ever take what is not yours." He never came back. She blinked hard, pushing the thought away. "No, this is mine now," she muttered. "It's my turn to live." That night, Mary slept in her small wooden room in Coal Camp. The briefcase sat beside her bed. She stared at it until sleep pulled her eyes shut. Then, the dream began. She was standing in an open field, the moon bright above her. A woman's voice echoed through the wind, soft but full of sorrow. "Mary!" She turned. In the mist, stood the old woman, her white wrapper glowing faintly. "Return what is not yours," the voice said, echoing again. Return it before it buries what you love. Mary gasped and woke up. Her whole body was drenched in sweat. The room was silent, but she could still hear that voice fading away. She tried to convince herself it was just a nightmare. Maybe hunger is making me see things, she whispered, forcing a weak laugh. But when she looked at the briefcase, she thought she saw the shadow of a woman sitting beside it, just for a split second, and then it was gone. She wrapped the briefcase in cloth again and hid it under her bed. Her heart beat fast. What if someone saw me take it, she thought. What if the old woman reports to the police? Meanwhile, not far from there, in an abandoned storehouse, 3 men whispered under dim light. I saw her, said one of them, the youngest thief. A pregnant woman. She carried the briefcase away. I couldn't follow because of the police siren. The oldest of the 3 slammed his hand on the table. You fool! That's the gold we risked our lives for. Do you even know what that woman buried with it? No one knows, the young man replied nervously. They said her husband died protecting it, and before he died, he told her never to let greedy hands touch it. Then it's ours now, the leader growled. We'll find the woman. She can't hide forever. The next morning, Mary sat on her narrow bed, staring at the briefcase. The golden bars shimmered faintly as a ray of sunlight entered through a crack in the wall. She whispered to herself, just one. If I sell only one, nobody will know. Her hands trembled as she lifted a single gold bar and wrapped it inside an old nylon. Her heart raced as she made her way to Ogbeat Market, to a shop rumored to deal in rare metals. The man behind the counter was dark-skinned, tall, with a scar running from his ear to his chin. He eyed her suspiciously. Madam, where you see this kind thing? Mary forced a smile. It belonged to my late husband, she lied. He worked at a mine. The man tested the gold, and when the meter blinked green, his expression changed instantly. This is real, he whispered. You sure say you and sell 'em? Mary nodded quickly. Her heart thudded. Yes. I need the money. He counted a large pile of cash, more than she had ever seen in her life. When she felt the weight of the money in her bag, tears filled her eyes. That evening, she didn't go back to her small room in Coal Camp. Instead, she went straight to Independence Layout, where tall gates and manicured lawns filled the streets. She rented a luxury apartment, marble floors, glass balcony, new curtains, a generator that purred instead of roared. For the first time in years, she slept on a soft bed. The baby inside her kicked gently as if celebrating. She bought new clothes, wigs, and a golden wristwatch that gleamed like sunlight. When neighbors asked how she could afford it, she simply smiled and said, God's grace. But in the quiet of the night, that same grace began to whisper differently. The voice from her dreams returned, the old woman again, now clearer, louder, closer. Mary, gold found in dirt will never bring peace. Mary woke up gasping, clutching her chest. The briefcase was under her bed, but she could hear faint jingling, as if someone was counting the bars inside. No, she whispered. No, I'm imagining things. She poured herself a glass of juice, walked to the balcony, and looked out over the glittering city lights. From up here, she could see Enugu like a world that finally belonged to her. She smiled weakly, rubbing her belly. You'll have a good life, she whispered to her unborn child. You'll never suffer like me. But just as she turned back to go inside, she saw something that froze her blood. Across the street, a black car had stopped quietly. 2 men sat inside, smoking, their eyes fixed on her gate. She felt their gaze pierce through her window. Her fingers tightened on the curtain. Who are they? She whispered. The next morning, the car was gone, but fear remained. To distract herself, Mary began living louder. New dresses, new perfume, new friends who called her Madame Gold. She attended parties, donated to church, and pretended her wealth was clean. Yet, every night, the same dream returned. The old woman stood by a river, holding something wrapped in white cloth, a crying baby. "A child born in greed will not see peace," she said again. Mary would always wake up screaming, drenched in sweat, whispering, "It's just a dream, just a dream." But deep inside, she knew it was not. Her reflection in the mirror began to frighten her. She often thought she saw someone standing behind her, the faint image of a woman in white. At night, lights flickered. Her jewelry box rattled. The scent of dry earth, the smell of a grave, would sometimes fill her room. She stopped sleeping well. Her laughter became forced. The baby kicked harder each day, as if restless inside her. And one evening, when she looked out her balcony again, the black car had returned, parked silently, headlights off. She felt her heartbeat quicken, her fingers trembling. "Why are they watching me?" she whispered. "What do they want?" Her phone rang suddenly. Unknown number. When she answered, there was silence. Then a rough male voice said, "We know what you took." The line went dead. Mary's legs weakened. The phone slipped from her hand. She turned slowly toward the bed, where the briefcase lay half open, the gold glimmering faintly under the dim light. And for the first time, she felt the weight of her choices pressing down like a curse. She dropped to her knees, clutching her belly, whispering through tears, Maybe I should have listened to that old woman." But it was too late, because somewhere in Enugu, 3 men were already on their way, and one of them had sworn that no one would live to enjoy that cursed gold. Mary looked out into the night again. The sky above her estate flashed with distant lightning. The wind howled faintly, carrying with it a whisper that made her shiver. "Return what is not yours, before it buries what you love." And as the thunder rolled, Mary held her belly tightly, her tears mixing with fear because deep down, she already knew, the old woman wasn't done with her yet. For weeks, Mary's life changed in ways she had never imagined. Every morning, she woke to the hum of her air conditioner and the smell of freshly brewed coffee made by her new house help, Ngozi. She would stretch, rub her round belly gently, and smile. "My child," she'd whisper, "we made it." The street where she lived used to feel like a dream. Clean roads, security guards, gates taller than palm trees. Now, it was her address. She had joined the world of those who never looked back. The briefcase of gold stayed hidden beneath her bed, locked in a small metal safe. She only opened it sometimes, not out of need, but to remind herself how far she had come. Every time the gold glowed against her skin, it made her feel untouchable. Soon, Enugu began to talk about her. "That young pregnant woman who just moved into Royal Crown Estate, who is she? I heard her husband lives abroad." "No, they say she inherited money from her family." Mary smiled at the rumors. She didn't correct anyone. She liked the mystery. She bought herself a new black Lexus SUV, the kind that turned heads at every traffic light. Her driver, a quiet man named Ifini, opened doors for her like she was royalty. When she drove past her old neighborhood at coal camp, she didn't stop. She couldn't. The sight of those narrow, muddy streets made her chest tighten with shame and pity. She was no longer that woman. At the salon, the stylist treated her like a celebrity. At church, the ushers led her to the front seat. Even the pastor called her Madam Mary of Blessing. She gave donations, sponsored widows, and spoke with calm grace. Everyone wanted to sit beside her. Yet, when she was alone, she often caught herself staring at the mirror, wondering how quickly the world could change. Sometimes, late at night, she would whisper, "Was it really luck? Or fate?" But she quickly dismissed the thought. "No," she'd say. "God gives blessings in mysterious ways." The months rolled by. Mary's belly grew heavier, but so did her confidence. She started a boutique in New Haven, Mary Gold Collections. The shop sold expensive handbags, perfumes, and designer clothes. Young girls admired her, older women envied her. She walked differently now, chin high, steps slow and graceful, eyes bright with pride. She had gone from a woman who begged for leftovers to one who picked her own jewelry under golden light. At night, when she opened her safe and saw the gold bars shining, she felt a strange satisfaction, like she had outsmarted life itself. But once in a while, something tiny disturbed that peace. A sound she couldn't explain. A shadow that flickered at the edge of her vision. A dream she couldn't remember clearly when she woke up. They were small things, easy to ignore, and so she did. Then came the invitations. Politicians' wives wanted her at their gatherings. Charity organizations called her to sponsor events. Photographers snapped her pictures as she arrived in her SUV, dressed in flowing gowns and gold earrings. She had become the woman people talked about, elegant, calm, mysterious. One evening, at a charity dinner in Nike Lake Resort, a young journalist approached her shyly. "Madam Mary, people say your story is inspiring," he said. "They want to know how you became so successful so fast." Mary smiled gracefully. "Hard work," she said. "And faith in God." He nodded, impressed. But as she turned to leave, she saw something at the far end of the hall, a woman in white, standing near the doorway, staring straight at her. Mary blinked. The woman was gone. She froze for a second, then laughed nervously. "Maybe I'm just tired," she whispered. Still, something about that night clung to her like a shadow. Back at home, she poured herself a glass of juice and walked onto her balcony. The estate below glowed with lights. Soft jazz played from a distant house. She felt the baby move gently and smiled again. "This is what peace feels like," she told herself. Her phone buzzed, a message from one of her new friends. "You're trending on social media. Everyone loves your story." She laughed softly, scrolling through photos of herself from the event. She looked powerful, glowing, untouchable. But just beneath that feeling of joy, a small whisper crept into her thoughts. What if this doesn't last? What if someone finds out where the gold came from? She shook her head quickly. No one knows. No one will ever know. Still, as she looked out into the dark night, she thought she saw something. A faint silhouette near the estate gate, a figure standing still. It was probably the security man. Probably. She turned away, trying to laugh it off, but her laughter felt hollow. A few days later, Mary visited her boutique in town. Customers flooded the shop, admiring the new arrivals. "Madam Mary, this your store na heaven on earth," one woman said. Mary smiled, her voice calm. "When God opens doors, no man can close them." But later that day, as she sat in her office counting sales, she heard a soft knock. "Madam," her assistant whispered, "2 men are outside asking of you." Mary looked up, her pen frozen midair. "What do they want?" "They didn't say. They just said it's important." Mary hesitated. "Tell them I'm busy." The girl nodded and left. Mary waited. Minutes passed. When she finally stepped outside, the men were gone. Only a cigarette butt burned near the gate. She picked it up and frowned. Who smokes inside a plaza? That evening, she drove home in silence. The city lights looked different, colder somehow. As she parked, she looked at herself in the car mirror and noticed faint dark circles under her eyes. Maybe she'd been working too much. Maybe the pregnancy was just taking its toll. She tried to smile, but for a brief second, her reflection didn't smile back. She blinked quickly, heart pounding. "Mary, calm down," she whispered. "You're tired. That's all." She went inside, greeted Ngozi, and went straight to her bedroom. The briefcase was still under the bed, locked safely away, but she didn't open it this time. She couldn't. For some reason, she didn't want to see it tonight. Later that night, Mary lay awake, listening to the quiet hum of her air conditioner. Her phone buzzed with another message from her friend. They say you might be nominated for Businesswoman of the Year. She smiled faintly, though her eyes were heavy. That it was strange. She had everything she'd ever prayed for, yet her chest felt empty. She turned on her side and whispered, "Maybe after the baby comes, I'll rest. Maybe then, peace will come fully." The baby kicked softly, almost like a reply. Mary smiled again. But as her eyes began to close, she couldn't stop wondering, how long can a secret stay buried before it starts to dig its way out? Enugu City had never seen a transformation like Mary's. Within months, she became a name whispered in admiration and envy. Her boutique, Marigold Collections, had grown into 2 branches, one at New Haven, another at Polo Mall. Her face was on banners advertising charity events, her name on donor lists in churches and hospitals. Even politicians' wives sought her advice on business. Every morning, journalists sent messages requesting interviews. She always declined politely. "My story is not ready yet," she'd say with a gentle smile. The truth was, she didn't even know what story to tell. Would anyone believe that her fortune came from a dustbin? Her house had changed too. There were flowers by the gate now, a gardener who came twice a week, and a cook who prepared whatever her cravings demanded. Her driver, Ifini, cleaned the black Lexus till it gleamed like a mirror. On weekends, she hosted small gatherings for friends. Laughter, champagne, soft music, expensive perfume in the air. Sometimes she'd sit in the middle of it all, watching her friends talk, thinking, so this is what it feels like to finally belong. But whenever the laughter faded and the music stopped, a strange quietness filled her chest. It was the kind of silence that reminded her of who she used to be. One evening, after everyone had gone home, Mary sat on her balcony overlooking the city lights. She placed her hand gently over her round belly and spoke softly, as if her baby could hear her. "My little one," she said, smiling, "you'll never know hunger. You'll never beg for love. You'll go to the best schools. You'll wear what you want, eat what you like. I'll make sure of it." Tears gathered in her eyes. "Everything I'm doing," she whispered, "I'm doing for you. Even if I have to lie to the world, you will live the life I never had." The baby moved slightly, as if responding, and she laughed softly. "I'll call you Chinonso," she said. "Because truly, God is near." For the first time in a long while, her heart felt light. But peace never stays long when it's built on broken truth. The next day, as Mary left her estate to attend a business meeting, her driver pointed out something odd. "Madam, you notice that car behind us?" Mary looked through the mirror. A grey Toyota Camry had been following them for nearly 10 minutes. "Maybe they're just going our way," she said casually, but her voice was softer than usual. At the next junction, Ifini turned unexpectedly. The grey car turned too. Mary's fingers tightened on her purse. "Keep driving." They weaved through several streets before the car finally sped past them and disappeared. Mary tried to laugh it off. "This city is full of mad drivers," she said, forcing a smile. But the smile didn't reach her eyes. That evening, as she sat at her desk reviewing boutique sales, her phone rang. The screen showed unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Hello." Silence. "Who's this?" she asked. A low male voice replied, "You look beautiful in your red car." The call ended before she could speak. Mary froze, her heart dropped into her stomach. She turned to the window and saw her reflection, and behind it, the faint shadow of her parked car glowing under the estate lights. She locked all her doors that night. The next morning, she tried to carry on as usual. Marigold Collections, customers still smiled, friends still called her Madam Success, and photographers still asked for pictures. But her mind wasn't there. Every passing car made her flinch, every stranger's stare felt like recognition. At lunch, one of her friends, Amora, noticed her silence. "Mary, are you okay? You've been quiet lately." Mary smiled weakly. "Just tired. Pregnancy voila." Amora laughed. "You're glowing though. See your skin, Money fits you, my sister. Mary chuckled lightly, but her mind was elsewhere. That if only Amora knew how heavy that money felt in her hands. That night, as she returned home, she told herself she was being paranoid. Still, she looked over her shoulder twice before entering her gate. Ngozi greeted her cheerfully. "Welcome, madam." "Thank you," Mary said softly. "Lock the gate, please." She went straight to her room and opened the safe. The gold still sat there, untouched, gleaming like captured sunlight. She ran her fingers over one bar and smiled faintly. "No one can take you from me," she whispered. But just then, her phone buzzed again, another unknown number. She stared at it for a while before answering. "You live fine now, eh?" The same male voice sneered. "You think we don't know you took what's ours?" The line went dead. Mary stood frozen for nearly a full minute. Her throat felt dry, her hands shaking. She sat slowly on the edge of her bed, breathing hard. "What do they want from me?" she whispered. "I didn't steal it. I just found it." But somewhere deep inside, she knew that wasn't true, not completely. Days turned into weeks, and the tension grew. The grey car appeared again, parked near her boutique, always at a distance. She reported it once to the estate security, who promised to keep watch, but no one ever caught them. The world still saw her as Madame Mary the businesswoman, but inside, fear was quietly building its nest. She started cancelling public appearances, saying she needed rest before delivery. She stopped attending parties. She avoided social media. Her friends called it pregnancy mood swings. But deep down, Mary knew she was hiding. One night, she sat in her room, staring at a picture of herself from a few months ago, laughing, carefree, full of light. Now her eyes looked different. There was something tired behind her smile. She placed a hand on her belly again. "It's okay," she whispered to her unborn child. "I'll keep you safe. No one will touch us." The baby kicked, harder this time, almost sharply. "Hey," she said softly, "easy now." But she couldn't shake the strange feeling that the baby's movement wasn't from joy, but warning. She looked toward the window, half expecting to see someone watching. There was no one, but only the faint reflection of her own face, dimly lit by the streetlights outside. She exhaled, forcing a smile. "Maybe I just need rest," she whispered, turning off the lamp. "Everything will be fine." Yet as she closed her eyes, her last thought lingered like a whisper in the dark. What if the life she built so fast starts falling apart just as quickly? The sun was setting over Enugu when the three men stepped off a battered bus at Holy Ghost Park. Dust clung to their shoes, and anger burned quietly in their eyes. They had come for one thing, their gold. The leader, Odogwu, walked ahead with his hands in his pockets. His scarred face drew stares, but his calm stride warned everyone to look away. Behind him, Tunde carried a small bag, and Chika, the youngest, held a newspaper with trembling hands. "Boss," Chika said softly, "I still don't understand. How do we find her in a big city like this?" Odogwu smiled, revealing a cracked tooth. "Rich people can hide from poor men," he said, "but not from their own reputation." He pointed at the newspaper headline. "Pregnant entrepreneur, Mary Gold, sponsors women empowerment program." Underneath was her photo, smiling in a white gown, her hand resting proudly on her belly. Chika's eyes widened. "It's her. That's the woman." Odogwu nodded slowly. "Then our job just got easier." They looked at one another, the same thought in all their minds, that if she could rise that fast, then the gold was still intact and worth killing for. That same evening, Mary sat on her couch, exhausted but restless. Her house felt too quiet. Ngozi, her maid, had gone to her village for a few days, leaving the mansion emptier than ever. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound that filled the air. Mary scrolled through her phone, reading headlines about herself. Mary Gold, the woman who rose from nowhere. Business miracle or destiny? She smiled faintly, but the words made her uneasy now. Even strangers knew her face. She placed the phone aside and walked to the window, gazing down at the glowing streets. The city looked peaceful, but peace often hides eyes that watch from the dark. A faint knock echoed from her gate. She froze. It was late, too late for visitors. She checked the security camera on her phone. The feed flickered for a moment before showing two men standing outside the gate. Their faces were blurry under the yellow light. "Who are they?" she whispered. She zoomed in, but before she could focus, the camera feed cut off completely. A chill ran through her. She stepped back from the window. Then her phone rang, unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Who is this?" The voice was calm, deep, and chillingly familiar. "You don't know us, but we know what you took. You can't keep it forever." The line went dead. Mary's knees weakened. She sank into the couch, clutching her chest. "This can't be happening," she whispered. "Not now." Her eyes shifted toward her bedroom door, toward the safe where the briefcase lay hidden. The next morning, she called Ifini, her driver. "I need to change my number," she said firmly. "And I want you to inform the estate security, no visitors unless I call them myself." "Okay, madam," he said, looking concerned. "Everything fine?" Mary forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just too many calls lately." But as Ifini left, she leaned against the wall, her heart racing. "They found me," she thought. "They know who I am." Meanwhile, in a cheap guest house across town, Odogwu watched Mary's interview replaying on an old television. "Look at her," he muttered. "Living like a queen with what we bled for." Tunde laughed bitterly. She even changed her name to Mary Gold. The gold really entered her blood. Odogwu turned to Chika. "You said she's pregnant?" "Yes, boss. And living in some estate near Independence Layout. Big security." Odogwu smiled. "Then we'll wait. No need for rush. When the baby comes, her guard will drop." He leaned back on the bed, lighting a cigarette. "And when it does, we'll take what's ours." Back in the estate, Mary's days turned quiet. She rarely went out now. The boutique managers ran her businesses while she stayed home, avoiding the noise of the world. She told everyone she was resting before childbirth. But inside her mansion, silence felt heavier than comfort. She stopped playing music, stopped answering calls. Even the baby's kicks felt different, less gentle, more insistent, as if the child sensed the storm brewing around them. One night, after another sleepless evening, Mary drifted into a strange dream. She was standing by a wide river under a full moon. The water shimmered gold, flowing endlessly. Across the river stood the old woman, dressed in the same white wrapper, her eyes glowing faintly. "Mary," she said calmly, "you built your house on tears." Mary tried to speak, but her voice wouldn't come out. "When I begged you, you turned away," the old woman continued, "and the gold you hid became your curse." Mary shook her head violently. "I didn't mean to take it. I thought." "You thought hunger made it right," the old woman interrupted, her tone heavy with sorrow. "But the gold carries names. My husband's promise. My bloodline's hope." The wind howled. The water rippled violently. "You cannot keep what belongs to the dead." Suddenly, the river surged upward, swallowing the reflection of the moon. Mary screamed, and woke up gasping, her nightdress soaked in sweat. She sat up quickly, looking around. Her safe door was slightly open. Her hands shook as she crawled toward it. The gold was still inside, untouched, but the smell of damp soil filled the room, like the scent of rain on graves. She slammed the door shut, locking it again. Her heart pounded like a drum. She whispered, "God, please don't let me go mad." The next morning, she tried to convince herself it was all a dream. She dressed in a simple gown and sat in her garden, watching the gardener trim the flowers. But when she turned to pick her teacup, she froze. Through the iron gate, parked by the roadside, she saw a grey Toyota Camry. Again. Same car. Same distance, but this time, she could see them clearly, 2 men inside, watching her. Her breath caught. She stood slowly, pretending to walk back into the house, but her hands were shaking too much to hold the cup. She went inside and called Ifini immediately. "Come now. Don't ask why. Just come." "Yes, madam," he said. When he arrived minutes later, she pointed at the gate, but the car was gone. "Madam," Ifini said gently, "maybe it's just another tenant's guest." Mary nodded, but she knew what she saw. That night, as she sat alone on her bed, she whispered to her belly, "I promised you safety. I won't let them touch you. I'll protect us, no matter what." The baby kicked softly, almost like a reply, but it only made her cry. Her tears fell silently as the lights flickered again. And for the first time, Mary realized that both the living and the dead might now be hunting her, one for vengeance, the other for justice. The gold had bought her the world, but it had also sold her peace. She wiped her tears, staring at the locked safe under her bed. "I'll handle it," she whispered. "I'll fix everything before the baby comes." But far away, under the dim light of a street pole, the grey car stopped once more, and 3 men stepped out, watching the estate gate from a distance. Odogwu crushed his cigarette under his boot. "It's time," he said coldly. "Before she gives birth, that gold returns to us." He looked up at her house in the distance, his voice like gravel. "Even if she cries for mercy, she'll learn one thing." He paused, smiling faintly. "Nobody steals from the dead and lives happy." The rain had not stopped for 2 days. It fell over Enugu like a grey curtain, soaking the streets, muting the sound of engines and voices. Inside her luxury apartment, Mary sat by the window, her eyes lost in the drifting rain. She was 7 months pregnant now, but she looked older, not in age, but in spirit. The city she once ruled with her grace and confidence now felt like a cage. She no longer went to the boutique, she no longer answered friends' calls. Her laughter, once bright, had grown thin, like a memory fading into silence. Everywhere she went, she felt watched, sometimes by men in the street, sometimes by shadows that existed only in her mind. She pressed her palm gently over her belly. The baby moved weakly. "Don't worry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Mummy's here. You'll be fine." But even she didn't believe her own words. That morning, she tried to distract herself by rearranging the living room. She moved the chairs, dusted the shelves, and folded baby clothes she had bought months ago, tiny socks, a white blanket, a pair of shoes no longer than her palm. She smiled faintly as she lifted them, imagining the little feet that would soon fill them. But as she looked around, her smile faded. The gold, the source of everything, lay hidden beneath her bed, locked tight inside the safe. It was strange how something so bright could bring so much darkness. She sat on the edge of the couch and whispered, Maybe after the baby comes, I'll donate all of it. Give it to an orphanage. Maybe then peace will return." It sounded noble in her head. But in her heart, she knew the gold had its own mind. It wasn't something that could be given away. It felt alive. Waiting. By afternoon, the rain had stopped, and the house was quiet again. Mary walked to the kitchen to make tea. As she poured hot water into the cup, she suddenly felt dizzy. Her hand slipped. The cup shattered on the floor. She grabbed the counter for support, breathing heavily. "It's just stress," she murmured. "I just need to rest." She walked slowly to her bedroom, holding her belly as if comforting the baby. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached her bed, she lay down carefully and closed her eyes. The silence pressed around her. And then, she heard it. A whisper, soft, gentle, right beside her ear. "Return it, Mary." Her eyes flew open. She sat up instantly. No one was there. The room was empty. The voice was faint, almost like her own thought, but it wasn't hers. It was the same voice from the river dream, but gentler now. Almost pleading. Mary covered her ears and shook her head. "Stop it," she whispered. "I've had enough." But her voice broke midway. She lay back again, tears rolling silently down her face. Days passed, and her condition worsened. Her appetite disappeared. Her energy faded. Even her reflection looked like a stranger. Ngozi, her maid, returned from the village and was shocked by how much weight Mary had lost. "Madam, you need hospital," she said softly. Mary smiled weakly. "I'll go soon. Just not today." Ngozi tried to insist, but Mary waved her off. "Go and rest. I'll be fine." That night, as Ngozi slept in the next room, Mary lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly above her. The baby kicked again, but this time, it hurt. She winced and rubbed her stomach. "Easy, my love. We'll be okay. Just hold on." But deep inside, she felt something changing, something fragile slipping away. The next morning, a knock came at the door. Mary opened it to find Amora, her friend, standing with a worried expression. "Mary," she exclaimed. "I've been calling for days. What's happening to you? You look pale." Mary forced a smile. "I'm fine, Amora. I just needed rest." Amora frowned. "Rest? You've lost weight. You're hiding. People are asking questions." Mary laughed faintly. "Let them ask. I'm tired of pretending for the world." Amora sat beside her, taking her hand gently. "Mary, whatever is wrong, talk to me. You know I won't judge you." Mary looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time, her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to tell her everything. About the dustbin. The gold. The voice. The fear, but words refused to come. Instead, she shook her head. "You won't understand." Amora sighed and squeezed her hand. "You're stronger than this. Whatever it is, face it." When she left later that day, Mary felt both lighter and lonelier. Her friend's kindness reminded her of what she had lost. Not money, not fame, but peace. That night, she sat outside her balcony, staring at the city lights again. Rain clouds gathered in the distance, rumbling softly. She thought of her husband, the man who left when life got hard. She thought of her old self, the one who used to pray for just one meal a day, and she thought of her unborn child, the only innocent soul tied to her mistakes. She placed a trembling hand over her belly. "My baby," she whispered, "if anything happens to me, just know that I tried. I tried to do everything right, but maybe I lost myself on the way." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I promise, if I ever get another chance, I'll choose honesty. I'll choose peace." The wind brushed her hair softly, like an unseen hand. For a moment, she thought she heard a distant cry, a baby's cry carried by the wind, but when she listened again, there was only silence. She stayed there for a long time, breathing slowly, until sleep found her in the chair. In another part of the city, Odogwu and his men watched from a parked car near the estate. The rain had returned, washing the windshield in streaks of silver. Chika spoke first. "Boss, she's not even leaving the house anymore." Odogwu nodded slowly. "She's tired. Fear breaks people before bullets do." He leaned back, lighting a cigarette. The glow flickered across his hard face. "When she collapses," he said, "we go in. Quietly. No police, no noise." Tunde frowned. "What if she hides the gold?" Odogwu smiled faintly. "Then we make her talk." Back in the mansion, Mary tossed restlessly in her bed, her breathing uneven. Her dream that night was not clear, but heavy, full of flashes. A broken briefcase, an old woman's tears. A baby's tiny hand reaching through smoke. She woke with a scream, clutching her belly. Pain shot through her lower body, sharp, deep, sudden. Her water had broken. Her breaths came in short, panicked gasps. "Not now," she whispered. "Please, not like this." She tried calling Ngozi, but her voice failed. The pain came again, harder this time. The room spun. The lights blurred. Through the window, thunder flashed, and for a brief second, she saw the reflection of the old woman again, standing quietly at the edge of the room, not angry, not smiling, just watching. And then everything went dark. The night Mary was rushed to the hospital, the rain was wild and merciless, lightning flashed over Enugu like angry fire from heaven, and thunder growled through the empty streets. 2 security men from her estate carried her into the car while Ngozi, her housemaid, sobbed uncontrollably. "Please, madam, hold on," she cried, holding Mary's cold hand. Mary's eyes fluttered open weakly. Her breaths came in short, broken gasps. "Don't let me die," she whispered, voice barely a breath. Her face was pale, sweat covered her forehead. The black Lexus sped through the storm, wipers beating hard against the windshield. "Make way! Make way!" the driver shouted as they reached the hospital gate. Inside the emergency ward, the nurses moved fast. "Pregnant woman, 32 weeks, heavy bleeding," one shouted. Another nurse shouted, "Prepare the theater, now." Mary was lifted onto a stretcher, her wrapper soaked in blood. The sound of machines and rushing footsteps filled the hall. Her mind floated between pain and confusion. She heard voices, but they felt far away, muffled, like she was underwater. Then everything slowed. She saw flashes, her boutique sign, her car, her house, all fading. And then, through the haze, she saw the old woman standing at the corner of the corridor, calm, quiet, watching. Her white wrapper shimmered faintly under the fluorescent light. Mary's lips trembled. "Please," she whispered, "don't take my baby." The old woman didn't speak. She only shook her head slowly, eyes heavy with sorrow. Then she faded, like smoke in the wind. "Doctor! We're losing her," a nurse shouted. "Get her into the operating room, now." Mary felt her body being rolled quickly through double doors. Bright white light above her eyes blurred into glowing halos. The pain tore through her again, sharp, deep, unbearable. Her mind screamed, but her mouth couldn't form words. All she could whisper was, "My baby, my baby." The anesthetic mask came down over her face. "Breathe deeply," a voice said. She obeyed. The world went dark. The operation began. Outside the theater, Ngozi knelt on the floor, praying loudly through tears. "Oh God, please save my madam. Don't let her die like this." The rain beat harder against the windows, as if heaven itself was mourning. After what felt like hours, the red light above the theater door went off. The doctor stepped out, removing his gloves. His face was grave. Ngozi rushed forward. "Doctor, how is she? How's the baby?" The doctor sighed. "She's alive, for now. But it was difficult." "And the baby?" Ngozi asked, voice shaking. The doctor hesitated. "The baby has complications. We're still observing." He didn't explain further. He just walked away, eyes lowered. Inside the room, Mary opened her eyes slowly. Her vision was blurred, her body weak. She saw tubes connected to her arms, and the faint beep of a monitor beside her bed. Her throat felt dry as dust. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. "My baby." A nurse nearby turned quickly. "You're awake, madam. Please rest." Mary ignored her. "My baby, where is he?" The nurse hesitated. "He's in the special unit, madam. The doctors are doing everything." Mary's eyes filled with tears. "Please, I want to see him." "Not yet," the nurse said softly. "You need strength first." But Mary couldn't rest. Every breath she took felt heavy with guilt. She closed her eyes, and the image of the old woman appeared again in her mind, not in anger this time, but in sadness. "You see now, Mary?" the voice echoed faintly. What we take from sorrow never brings joy. Mary wept silently, clutching her chest. I'm sorry, she whispered. Please forgive me. 2 days passed. Mary was moved to a private ward. Visitors came and went, mostly well-wishers from her estate, but inside, she was breaking. Her baby, Chinonso, had been born underweight and strangely silent. The nurses said he hardly cried. When they finally brought him to her, she felt both love and fear. He looked fragile, pale, tiny, almost too weak to hold. His fingers were long and thin, his eyes barely opened, but when they did, she froze. The child's eyes were a strange shade of gold. She gasped softly. Oh my God! The nurse smiled faintly, not noticing the color. He just needs rest, madam. He's a fighter. Mary nodded weakly, tears slipping down her cheeks. She held him close, kissing his forehead. My baby, she whispered, I'll protect you. I swear I'll make it right. But even as she said the words, her chest tightened with dread. That same night, while she slept in her hospital bed, a different storm raged across the city. At her mansion in the estate, Odogwu and his men finally made their move. They arrived past midnight, their car lights off, the sound of rain masking their steps. The guards were asleep. The gate was no match for men like them. They slipped inside like shadows. Chika whispered, Boss, are you sure she's still in the hospital? Odogwu smirked. I paid someone to check. She's not home. Now let's find what's ours. They moved through the silent house quickly, straight to the master bedroom. The safe under the bed was their first target. It didn't take long. Odogwu knelt down, pressed a stethoscope to the lock, and within minutes, the safe clicked open. The moment he saw the gold bars inside, his face hardened. There you are, he said quietly. Chika stared in awe. Boss, it's real. Tunde chuckled softly. Enough to change our lives forever. Odogwu lifted one bar into the air. The faint golden reflection danced across the room like lightning. Pack everything, he ordered. We leave before dawn. They filled 2 small bags with the bars and slipped out the same way they came in, leaving behind silence, rain, and an empty room that once smelled of comfort and pride. By morning, when Ngozi went back to check on the house, she found the gate slightly opened. At first, she thought the rain had pushed it loose, but when she entered, the sight made her knees buckle. The house was turned upside down, drawers open, wardrobe scattered, the safe under the bed empty. She dropped her bag and screamed. At the hospital, Mary woke up that same morning feeling strangely calm. Her body was weak, but her heart felt lighter for the first time in months, as if a weight had been lifted. She smiled faintly at the nurse. Can I see my baby? The nurse nodded. Yes, madam. But please, only for a while. They brought Chinonso to her again, but he was wrapped in white cloth, eyes closed, breathing soft and shallow. She kissed him gently. We'll be fine, she whispered. I'll fix everything. You'll grow strong. Then the door burst open. Ngozi ran in, drenched from rain, tears flooding her eyes. Madam, she cried. They broke into the house. The gold, everything is gone. Mary froze. The blood drained from her face. The gold, she whispered. Ngozi nodded, trembling. Yes. They took all of it. Everything. For a long moment, Mary said nothing. Then, slowly, she turned her gaze toward her sleeping baby. The nurse stepped closer, sensing something wrong. Madam, are you okay? Mary smiled faintly, a broken, exhausted smile. Her voice came out like a whisper of wind. Maybe it's better this way. She closed her eyes, still holding her child. Outside, thunder rolled softly over the city. And somewhere deep within her fading mind, she saw the old woman one last time, standing by the river, smiling gently this time. Peace returns when what's stolen finds its way home. Mary let out a weak breath, tears sliding down her cheeks. She held her baby tighter as darkness wrapped around her like a blanket. The rain that morning was softer, the kind that drizzled gently, as if the heavens were finally tired of crying. On the highway out of Enugu, a grey Toyota Camry sped through the wet road. Inside, Odogwu sat behind the wheel, a bag of gold beside him. The three men said little. The engine's hum and the sound of rain filled the silence. Chika glanced at the rearview mirror nervously. "Boss, you sure we shouldn't wait a few days before leaving the city?" Odogwu's eyes stayed on the road. "We already waited too long. Before sunrise, we'll be in Nsukka. Nobody will trace us." But fate had other plans. At the next checkpoint, 2 police vans were parked across the road. Officers waved cars down for inspection. Odogwu cursed under his breath. "Stay calm," he muttered. "Let me do the talking." When it was their turn, the officer leaned in. "Good morning. Where you day go this early morning?" Odogwu forced a smile. "Just business trip, officer." The officer looked at him, then at the 2 bags in the back seat. "Open that," he said casually. Tunde hesitated. "Just clothes, Oga." "Open it," the officer repeated, his tone changing. Odogwu sighed, pretending to obey, but when his hand reached for the door, a bar of gold slipped from the half-zipped bag and rolled onto the wet ground. The officer froze, another leaned closer. "Na gold be this?" Before they could answer, Odogwu started the car, trying to drive off, but the road was slick. The car swerved, spinning wildly before crashing into a ditch. Within seconds, the police surrounded them, guns raised. "Everybody down. Hands up." The men stumbled out, dazed, faces bleeding. The officers pulled them to the ground, opening the bags fully, revealing dozens of gold bars glimmering under the weak morning light. The inspector picked one up, his eyes wide. This is the stolen gold reported last month." Odogwu looked up from the mud, his lips trembling. "It wasn't ours, we just took it back." The officer glared. "From who?" Odogwu hesitated. Then his shoulders slumped. "A woman. A pregnant woman. We just wanted what was ours." The officer's face hardened. "You mean what was never yours?" By afternoon, the news spread across Enugu like wildfire. Armed robbery syndicate arrested with stolen gold bars, woman linked to case still hospitalized. The police traced the case back to the late old woman's family, who had once filed a complaint about her missing inheritance. Her 2 grown children, a son and a daughter, came to the station in tears when they saw the gold laid out before them. "This was our father's life," the daughter said softly, touching the bars with trembling fingers. "He buried this for us, and Mima died protecting it." The officer nodded gently. "It's yours again. The woman who found it, she's in the hospital. She didn't sell much of it. Only a small piece." The daughter wiped her tears. "May peace find her too. Mama always said, we don't curse the lost. We pray they find their way home." At the hospital, the world moved slower. The machines beeped faintly beside Mary's bed. Her skin was pale, her lips dry. Beside her, baby Chinonso slept quietly in a small cot. His breathing was shallow, but steady. Ngozi sat near the window, praying softly under her breath. When the doctor entered, his expression was kind but heavy. "She's very weak," he said. "We're doing all we can, but her body is failing. Too much blood loss. Too much stress." Ngozi nodded tearfully. "She's been through enough, doctor. Just let her rest in peace." That evening, as the golden light of sunset filtered through the window, Mary stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then calm. "Ngozi," she whispered. Ngozi rushed to her side. "Madam, you're awake." Mary smiled faintly. "The gold, did they find it?" Ngozi hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. The police caught the men. They returned it to the old woman's children. Mary's eyes glistened with tears. She looked up toward the ceiling. Thank you, God. Her hand moved weakly toward the small cot beside her. My baby. He's sleeping, Ngozi said gently. He's safe. Mary smiled again, eyes filling with both joy and sorrow. Then maybe the curse is broken. Her breathing slowed. She reached out, holding Ngozi's hand tightly. If he grows, tell him I tried. Tell him his mother was foolish once, but she learned too late. Ngozi sobbed, shaking her head. Don't talk like that, madam. You'll live. But Mary's gaze had softened, far away, peaceful now. I can see her, she whispered faintly. The old woman, she's smiling. And then her voice faded into silence. Days later, her burial was small and quiet. The church was filled with people who once praised her but never truly knew her story. Only Ngozi and Amora stood close, holding baby Chinonso between them. When the priest spoke, his voice echoed through the still air. The love of money blinds the eyes of many, but grace still finds those who fall. After the funeral, Amora turned to Ngozi. Do you think she found peace? Ngozi nodded, tears glistening. Yes. She did. The moment she let go. Months passed. The old woman's children rebuilt their mother's house and placed a small stone in the garden where the gold had once been buried. On it were engraved the words, "What we take from tears can never bring joy." And in Enugu, people still whispered her story, not as gossip anymore, but as a warning. They said, there was once a pregnant woman who found gold in a dustbin and lost everything trying to keep it. Listen, greed destroys. Every blessing taken from another's pain will someday return to the earth from where it came. Peace only lives in hands that stay clean. Thanks for watching. Also don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.